Senator from Iowa.
Thank you. And I want to thank my colleague and great friend as we work on this together. Really appreciate your leadership. Thank you for allowing me to join you on the floor today as we show our support for your bill sanctioning Russia Act of 2025. So thank you, Senator Graham. Folks, last week, President Trump showed the world that American leadership is back. He brought home the last living American hostage, delivering Edan Alexander from Iran-backed Hamas and reuniting him with his family after nearly 600 days. He stood with our partners in the Middle East to strengthen the historic Abraham Accords. And he delivered a strong message to Vladimir Putin: end the war. Today, I stand in support of a sovereign Ukraine and echo the president's call to Putin to stop this bloodbath that never should have happened. This is an issue that not only affects a close partner under siege, but also the strength of the United States of America and the security of the free world. Let's be clear here, folks. China is watching. So is Iran and North Korea. And of course, Vladimir Putin is watching too. They call it the new axis of evil for a reason. Mr. President, I personally witnessed and experienced the growth of the U.S.-Ukrainian relationship when I visited Ukraine in its waning days of Soviet control as part of an agricultural student exchange program. This was in 1989, and I had the privilege of living with a Ukrainian family on a very small collective farm. Now, as we got together, there were a number of us Iowa students on that exchange, and again, it was an agricultural exchange. We came together, each of us with our families, in a group setting, one of the very first nights that we were on that collective. And again, with the premise of an agricultural exchange, we were farming tomatoes, working with the cattle and the hogs, very small collective. We came together and the Ukrainians wanted to ask us questions. So all of us American students, all of us from Iowa, we sat down with our Ukrainian families and we expected to talk about agriculture. Iowa agriculture versus Ukrainian agriculture. And much to my surprise, the first question that came from our Ukrainian counterparts was not about how we raise corn or soybeans in Iowa. It was not about the types of machinery that we used on our farm. But the first question the Ukrainians asked us was, what is it like to be free? What is it like to be an American? Because in 1989, those Ukrainians were living under Soviet socialist rule. They could not travel without having the permission of their government. My family did not have a telephone, and if they wanted to use the collective manager's telephone, they would have somebody listening in on the conversation. They would have to know the purpose of the telephone call, who they were calling, why they needed to make a telephone call. This was 1989, and I learned a lot from that exchange. I saw Ukrainian people that were desperate to break free of socialist economic structures and authoritarian restrictions on freedom of movement, the ability to have your own employment, and on freedom of speech. 2 years later, Ukraine declared its independence from the Soviet Union and broke free. Later, many years later, 2003, the United States is involved in the war in Iraq. I was a soldier in 2003 during Iraqi freedom. So I was a transportation company commander, permanently stationed in Kuwait. My transporters ran convoys from the ports in Kuwait up to Iraq, delivering goods for our warfighters. So I was on a little sub-camp in Kuwait, outside of Camp Arifjan. Half of that sub-camp, called Camden Yards, was occupied by American forces. My soldiers and I lived on that sub-camp. The other half of the camp was occupied by other forces. Those other forces were Ukrainian soldiers. Ukraine's not part of NATO. They were not required to support the United States of America in Iraq. But Ukraine, of its own volition, sent their soldiers, and not just as support elements, they were there as combat forces. So again, I was a transporter. We ran convoys in Iraq. The other half of that camp that I lived on, they were Ukrainian engineer forces. They did road clearing. And I think back, how many American lives did those engineers save from their road clearing efforts, clearing bombs so they wouldn't be detonated by my drivers? Ukrainian forces, combat forces. Today, Ukraine is fighting its own war. And I will remind everyone, the United States does not have forces involved in the Russia-Ukraine war. None, zero, none. Today, Ukraine fights not only for its own survival, but for the very principles the United States was founded on. When America leads, the world is safer. When we disengage and when we retreat, like we saw for the last 4 years under the Biden administration, chaos fills the void. Russia's aggression has already cost too many innocent lives, about 5,000 lives every single week. Too many innocent lives, folks, which is why I support President Trump's efforts to get a peace deal done now. Vladimir Putin cannot keep tapping the United States of America along. I vow to keep working with my colleagues to equip the president with all the tools necessary to hold Russia accountable, including sanctioning Russia and its supporters if they continue to drag out these peace talks and carry on with the needless bloodshed. So this war that never should have started can come to an end. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.